Come seek us where our voices sound. We cannot sing above the ground.
Hello everyone, I'm Mermaid Midnight, but since I don't want to be bound to a rock all the time and trying to talk to you, give me a minute to put on my magic bracelet that gets me human legs. When you hear the word mermaid, it's very easy to think about Ariel or characters like her that are not only beautiful and with gorgeous voices, but are also curious, friendly creatures that even protect humans. And therefore it would also be easy to think that it would be beautiful to run into one when you're sailing, right? Well, it's not true. Although we all know that these creatures were popularized in ancient Greek mythology, besides the fact that originally they were very different from the concept that we have nowadays of a beautiful woman that's half woman and half fish, another interesting trivia about these creatures is that although they were popularized in Greece, they are not originally from there, because this concept of a creature that's half woman and half bird actually originated from India, where they were known as Kinnaris, and they were spiritual guardians that would take the dead or the souls of the dead to the afterlife or guard the portals between the worlds. And I gotta confess that when I first read this, I was extremely surprised because my first thought was, wait, how the hell did a concept that was born in India, so far away from Greece, made it all the way there to the point of the Greeks adopting it as part of their mythology? But then I remember something that I learned when I was doing research for my color classes, and everything started making much more sense. Because when you start thinking about trade, this makes it very feasible for very different cultures or cultures that live very far away from each other to maybe not coexist in the same space, but to some degree at least spend time with each other and learn from each other in concepts. And in the case of the Greeks, for example, with India, China, Japan, and I'm sure many other regions in Asia and even Africa, they would trade products like ceramic, paintings, textiles, and other forms of art. And whether it was through a trip or maybe through a business transaction, the concept arrived all the way to Greece, but was resignified into a creature that's much more similar to the harpies, in the sense that they were very ugly women with bird features sometimes, and that would steal the souls of the living.
Could you dumb it down a shade?
And although obviously Poseidon would be the closest connections of Sirens to gods because of living in the sea that he controlled, other myths that are less known but still existent connect them actually to Demeter and Persephone. Because it was said that the Sirens in their origins were human maidens that would usually accompany Persephone. But when Hades captured her, Demeter, that as we know has a little bit of struggles managing her emotions, transformed these human maidens into these creatures half bird and half human, altering their voices as well. Some versions say that this was a punishment from not protecting Persephone properly, but some other versions say that these traits that Demeter gave the Sirens were actually to help them locate Persephone faster. Although personally, given how rageful and punishing the Greek gods were, and how badly this goddess Demeter struggled with managing emotions, honestly, if she lived in the world of Encanto, I think she would be like Aunt Peppa, that alters the weather with her mood. I would lean more into the version that says this was a punishment for the Sirens rather than a prize. But at any rate, whether it was prize or punishment, these creatures, far from being desired or wanted by sailors, were actually feared by them, given the legends that told them that unless they protected themselves from hearing their song, their voices would hypnotize them and make them crash against the rocks. And actually Ulysses, the protagonist of the Odyssey, is one of the few, if not the only Greek hero that's documented to have survived an encounter with the Sirens after hearing their voice. Because in the myth advised by Circe, first he uses wax to cover his ears and his tribulations, but then he makes his men tie him to the masthead so he can uncover his ears and listen to the sirens singing, but no matter how desperate he is to go with them, he can't.
Who's bad? Sinbad.
Men!
And by the way, the fact that there's not many stories that talk about women being murdered by sirens is basically due to the fact that in ancient Greek, like in the majority of ancient cultures, it was not very popular, at least not as much as with men, for women to sail. But if one decided to do so, she would be exactly in the same danger as her male counterparts. And in case you were wondering, your sexual preference, like being gay as a man or straight as a woman, would not save you either. But then where did this concept of a creature that's half woman and half fish, that can also idiotize humans but for different reasons, come from? They are actually from Greece as well, but they were known as the Nereids or the nymphs of the sea. These nymphs would accompany the god Poseidon, and one of them, named Amphitrite, became his wife. Their father was Nereo, god and prophet of the sea, that was also known as the wise or the elder of the sea, and their mother was the Oceanic Doris.
Oceanic what?
Oceanic, meaning daughters of the Titan Oceano and the Titanic Thetis. And given the patient and kind nature of their father Nereid that even helps some heroes like Hercules, giving him crucial information in his tasks, and on the other hand the abundant generosity of their mother Doris, whose name actually means those two concepts, unlike their Siren counterpart, the Nereids were actually benevolent beings that, far from attacking humans, would actually protect sailors and ports. And partly why nowadays it's easy to confuse the concept of Siren, Mermaid, or Nereid is due to the fact that many other cultures parallel to Greece popularized these two concepts, frequently mixing them. In ancient Rome, for example, we can see myths about beings of the water that would attract the traveler men with their singing, but also in Nordic myths with the Merrows that were beautiful women with green hair and the ability to transform between woman and fish. And it was also said about these beings that they were able to see the future and deliver messages to humans. And for the Harry Potter fans like yours truly, these creatures known as Merrows, among with the Mermaids and the Selkies, are part of the lore. We already know that the Mermaids are inspired in the Nereids, but when it comes to the Selkies, they actually come from Irish and Scottish mythology. And about these beings, the legend said that they were beautiful women with the ability to transform into seals, and they were frequently kidnapped by human men given their beauty, but they would take away their seal skin, making it impossible for them to transform again. And the legend said that any Selkie that would have that fate, whether she succeeded or failed, she would spend the rest of her days trying to free herself from her human captor. The Ningyo in Japan were beautiful women with fishtail and a beautiful voice, but that were also seen as bearers of bad news. And although their meat gave the immortality if ingested, the price of eating it was an eternity of loneliness and sadness. And some African cultures like Mesopotamia and Egypt, although did not have sirens, mermaids, or nymphs, they did worship beings and deities from water. And although the Egyptian god Sobek that was known as the Lord of the Nile and of fertility did not have nymphs, some cultures in Egypt would even worship crocodiles as they thought of them as a representation of him. Not to mention the African goddess Mami Wata that was represented as a beautiful mermaid that would protect and help the people that depended on water to live. And although technically that sounds like, well, everybody in the world because we all need water to survive, I think the myth referred more to sailors or people that actually have to work inside the water. And this goddess also represented the duality between the beauty and danger of the sea. And although since the ancient cultures the concepts of sirens, mermaids, and nereids started to blend, the image that we have of mermaids nowadays, it's also due to the medieval tales like The Little Mermaid of Hans Christian Andersen that popularized the concept of the beautiful woman with a fish tail that would make sailors fall in love. And although these tales predominate a lot in magic and fantasy, they do keep some elements from the original myths, like conceptualizing the mermaids as spirits of the water. And in cases like The Little Mermaid, they can even transform into daughters of the air if they sacrifice for love. And by the way, the Catholic Church also adopted the concept, but in their case as a warning to resist temptation.
Hey!
Nowadays we can see mermaids in all forms of art, from drawings, pictures, books, tales, and on the other hand movies, series and video games. And something very interesting is that although there are still love stories related to these beings, mermaids nowadays do not only represent fantasy, sexuality and romantic love, but also friendship. We can see this, for example, in movies like Aquamarine, where the protagonist Aquamarina earns her freedom by proving to her father, the king of the ocean, that love exists. But she doesn't prove this by seducing a human like she had planned, but by earning the heart of her friends, who not only help her on her quest and protect her from the jealous bullies, but also sacrifice their wish in order to save Aquamarina from being imprisoned by her father. If you like this video about mermaids, don't forget to leave me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and click on the bell so YouTube lets you know when I upload the next video. And if you'd like me to talk deeper about the mermaids or about a different creature, let me know in the comments as well. Team Midnight loves you, hopes to see you next time, and I hope you enjoyed this special about mermaids. Until very soon.
From sea coast where our voices sound, we cannot sing above the ground. An hour long you'll have to look and recover what we took.